What's up, you guys? Adam here with Anabolic Climbing. And today it's time for the growth hormone guide for rock climbers, where we are going to get into the pros, the cons, some of the ways to mitigate some of the downstream effects, and ultimately dosing of growth hormone in a way that is helpful for us as rock climbers. This is not going to be a full deep dive to growth hormone. I'm going to link that at the end. But if you guys like these kind of guides, please leave a comment, hit the like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel out tremendously. And without further ado, let's do a really quick primer for growth hormone and why we're taking it before we jump into the nitty-gritty. So, the first thing is first. The reason that we are interested in leveraging growth hormone is it is the best way to upregulate collagen synthesis in a way that is both really helpful for positive tendon remodeling and also in a way that is done with a bioidentical hormone. There is no compound that I have found that has better tendon outcomes than growth hormone. At some point I might find something, but right now this is as good as it gets. And there's a study that I will be linking in the description box below where you can see that when they gave healthy young men 3 to 6 IUs of growth hormone over 2 weeks, we had a near 4-time increase in collagen synthesis, as well as increases in from 3 to 10x of serum IGF-1 levels, 17% growth stimulus versus placebo, and most importantly, it was something that, excuse me, but most importantly, had positive outcomes on tendon stiffness and lattice structure as well. So, in general, HGH led to meaningful improvements in muscle function after 6 months with no clear increase of muscle volume. It's protective to cartilage. And the main way that growth hormone is utilized is not through the growth hormone itself, but actually the upregulation of IGF-1. And that in turn both activates satellite cells and improves protein and collagen synthesis and improves rates of absorption, which then translates into better collagen and protein synthesis. So now that we have our primer set, let's get into a little bit of, again, this is just going to sort of link back to the study that we just discussed. I'm going to be linking that below. Let's talk a little bit about the pros of growth hormone, as well as some of the cons as well. So number one, fat loss. Folks that leverage growth hormone because of the increased nutrient partitioning and some of the better protein and collagen synthesis, folks tend to be leaner when they take growth hormone. And that's obviously a net benefit, particularly on a cut, which then translates to muscle retention. When folks are given between 3 to 6 IUs of growth hormone, they're expected to gain between 5 to 10 pounds of tissue. Some of that could be glycogen, some of that could be water retention, but increases in muscle mass are noted on exogenous levels of growth hormone, and this usually takes a few months. This isn't something that, while you'll see the water retention and the glycogen retention immediately, the actual contractile tissue increase usually takes months to accrue. That said, this is a compound that can be leveraged for muscle and collagen synthesis from both men and women alike. Unlike anabolics, which will increase muscle but could potentially virilize women, either giving them masculinized features, deeper voice, larger clitoris. Look, if you're into clit maxing, God bless, but that's not something I advocate for on this channel, at least accidentally. Growth hormone is a safe way and an endogenous compound to women that they could use to increase their muscle mass and collagen synthesis without having to worry about virilization. In general, it will give supraphysiological levels of tendon growth, but stimulus is required. So unlike testosterone or anabolics, which I could just pin a gram of gear and grow without going to the gym, for better tendon outcomes, I need to give some sort of stimulus to my fingers and tendons. If you do that, and this is why it makes the most sense to not over ramp the drugs, but to just get it just tolerable enough to do work, it's basically going to be a force multiplier for your training, but it will never be a replacement for training. On the topic of better training, one of the things that growth hormone will give you is better sleep. Obviously, better rest and recovery leads to better training sets and better outcomes, but folks that use growth hormone usually sleep better. Next up, you guys know how I feel about cheating and think that it's clown behavior, But as it relates to urine tests, you cannot test for growth hormone on a urine test. Doesn't happen. It's actually really hard to test for in blood tests as well. The number of failed growth hormone tests in tested competition isn't zero, but it's really close. I've seen more teams get popped for having growth hormone in their bags than actually failing drug tests for growth hormone. That's real. I think it was in Australia where that happened. Next up, better skin and hair quality due to the upregulated collagen synthesis. This is pretty intuitive. But lastly, it definitely synergizes with anabolic androgenic steroids and testosterone. And it has very much a synergistic effect, or like a 1 + 1 = 3. Because in some cases, because growth hormone definitively increases IGF-1, that plus the exogenous hormones of the anabolics will ramp up and really multiply the muscle protein synthesis. Additionally, it seems like growth hormone can actually increase the overall number of muscle cells, which then the androgens can upregulate and make them bigger. I believe this can potentially happen with tendons as well, but I believe that it is not as pronounced as it is in muscle. But nothing happens for free, folks. There are cons that come with running growth hormone. There are things that we either need to test for in our labs or be able to mitigate through our own best practices. What are the things we need to look out for if we are taking growth hormone? And a lot of these are things that I've experienced. Number one, water retention. There are times when I am running too much growth hormone where it's actually very difficult to close my fingers because of the additional water in my hands. Also in my feet. Swollen feet is definitely a thing that is a possible outcome on growth hormone. Not only that, carpal tunnel as well. This is something that is reversible when discontinuing the drug, but the additional water can actually pinch down on the nerve, which can cause some numbness in the fingers itself. And again, that's kind of what can cause issues closing the fingers as well. It can also be kind of painful in the wrists. So running growth hormone too high too quickly is an extraordinarily uncomfortable experience. Next up, insulin resistance. Because we're ramping up IGF-1, what that's going to mean is you're going to be at a higher risk for becoming a pre-diabetic or diabetic person. Keeping carbs too high is going to increase the overall amount of nutrients that you're able to take in. But if this is done for too high for too long, insulin resistance will be a flag to discontinue the drug. Next up, if we ramp the compounds too high, particularly to like acromegaly levels, there is high potential for overall growth in the soft tissue of the hands, fingers getting wider, the brow, the nose, feet, all growing as a result of growth hormone. Some of this is potentially reversible depending on how high the dose is, but if you're getting into acromegaly levels, this is not a thing that can be reversed. So for example, if you were in the 1 to 2 IU range, you don't really have to worry about this. 3 to 4, it's possible that you could see some of these growth factors, over a long enough period of time, but this is something that would happen over months, not days. As you start pushing closer to the 6 IU range, this is really where it's going to start becoming more prevalent. And if you're just trying to get the largest fists possible for off-width cracks and things of that nature, if you're pushing 10 to 12 units of growth hormone a day and really trying to chase some of that acromegaly, do not expect to have larger fingers, but potentially a more developed brow, longer nose, and feet as well. Next up, and sort of to that process, the telomeres, or basically the overall longevity of the cell, you're basically burning it at both ends with growth hormone. So it's one of those things where I will be getting better tendon outcomes now, but it's possible that it will be more deleterious later down the line in my life as I get closer toward my 70s. In 20 to 30 years, some of the tendon strength that I have developed now may become more brittle in the future because I opted to use this shortcut. Unfortunately, nothing is for free forever. And lastly, growth hormone doesn't drive performance directly. This is not an Anavar or a halotestin or a test suspension where you will see tangible increases to power right away. you will see tangential increases. And yes, my fingers will become more bulletproof. And then because of the strength of the muscle, we'll be able to hold more. But this will not be a direct power up regulator. This is more tangential. When sprinters were given growth hormone, I don't believe any changes were really seen in their times. Because of the nature of our sport, this seems like the best way to bulletproof our fingers so that we can in turn pull harder. But this is not a thing that's going to help with big dynos or big ballistic powerful moves. But let's talk about solutions to mitigate some of the problems that we just outlined so that A, we can extend our longevity leveraging growth hormone, as well as having a better time while doing it. Number one, fasted cardio. If you're leveraging anti-anabolic and not doing your cardio, you're fucking up, sorry to say. And you should reevaluate your life decisions. This is the lowest risk, highest reward activity that you can do to increase your longevity in general, and certainly as an enhanced athlete. Next up, natty or not, hydrating makes a ton of sense. 1 gallon of water should be your minimum, and this can help flush out some of the additional water retention in those fingers. Taurine, up to 6 grams, can help as well. One of the things I realized I did not correct is, in addition to growth hormone potentially having issues with insulin sensitivity, potentially having some diuretics in there to help with the water retention, as well as it can also increase your overall resting heart rate. Usually this subsides after about 6 weeks, but if your resting heart rate is still too high, preventing cardiac remodeling for left ventricular hypertrophy is super important as an enhanced athlete. When you develop, or if you're running anabolics plus growth hormone, the potential for left ventricular hypertrophy and a less efficient heartbeat is one of the things that kills bodybuilders all the time. Fasted cardio is a must, and if you can't get your heart rate under control, nebivolol is a thing worth considering. I'm currently taking 2.5 milligrams of nebivolol because my cardiac protection matters more than my stubbornness to try to avoid additional medications. Next up, we were talking about insulin resistance a lot. So there's 2 factors that you can use or potentially take both of them. Number 1, retatrutide. Because of the glucagon agonist on retatrutide and it basically working on the pancreas to assist with insulin sensitivity, that basically can help neutralize some of the impacts from the IGF-1 from the GH. And also lowering carbs means you're going to stay more insulin sensitive. Definitely a way to increase the runtime that you can get away with running GH without having to worry about becoming pre-diabetic or diabetic. And as far as a dosing schedule, it's definitely one of those things where I started at 1 IU a night and took my time going from 1 to 1.5 to 2. I'm currently at a little over 3 IUs a night. And if I ever hit a point where I can't close my fingers, it's time to lower the dose or go every other day or take a day off. There's nothing wrong with taking my time to getting to a more tolerable dose and ramping up slowly, because again, the stimulus matters more than the drug in this case. If I do this long enough, I'll be able to tolerate as many IUs as necessary to get to the levels of strength that I need to. There's no rush on this. And lastly, let's talk a little bit about dosing. For anti-aging or really a therapeutic replacement dose, you're really looking at around 2 IUs. You're going to have a hard time finding a doctor to prescribe this, even harder to find insurance to cover it. But with the anti-aging clinics, that's usually what they're doing. Super physiological doses with minimal, in air quotes, side effects is really 3 to 4 IUs. You're still going to have to worry about your insulin sensitivity. You're still going to need to look at your kidney markers. You are still going to need to do your fasted cardio and worry about your water retention. But even over an extended period of time, the facial structure changes or the finger size changes or the feet changes or nose changes are less likely on 3 to 4 IUs. However, when you bump that up to 5 to 6, especially if you run growth hormone for months, the likelihood of finger thickening and nose increases and changes in ears goes up dramatically. It's potentially reversible if continuing the drug, but it's also possibly not reversible. So as you start going into these upper doses, this is something that you need to be mindful of. And 10 plus IUs of growth hormone daily, you're chasing acromegaly territory. These are likely not reversible changes. And look, do I think any rock climber should really be going above 6 IUs? Probably not. The only reason you would be is you're a hardcore off-width enthusiast and you think having lunch boxes for fists is the best way to send your project. And if I was climbing Century Crack, yeah, maybe I'd consider running 12 IUs a night of growth hormone for 6 months to a year. And that's a thing worth considering. But considering that's not my goals, I don't see myself going above 4 to 5 IUs. Maybe I try to go to 6 to see if I could tolerate it, but 3 to 4 IUs seems like the sweet spot for me in my bouldering, and I assume the majority of climbers as well. Anyways, at this point, we have covered everything from pros, cons, mitigation, and harm reduction, as well as dosing protocols. I've been on growth hormone now for pushing almost 3 months continuously. I'll be doing some upcoming labs, and I'll be sharing that with the channel as well. But I will say that it has been one of those things that has sped up the overall gains of my block pulls. When I am able to manage the side effects, I feel like this plus testosterone is probably the peanut butter and jelly that makes increasing strength while keeping tendons working properly. It's more than likely the gold standard. Can you take other exotic drugs? Sure. But realistically, a little bit of test and a little bit of GH will get most of us as far as we ever need to go. Everything else is really just experimentation, but that's also what we do on this channel. Anyways, appreciate you guys as always. Again, thank you for supporting the channel. We've had a lot more folks joining, and that means the world to me. Don't forget to drop a like or a comment. It means the world, and we'll be back in a couple days for some more experiments, check-ins, and other compound breakdowns. Appreciate you. I'm Adam with Anabolic Climbing, wishing you good luck and happy sending. Cheers.